Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Eye on the Eagles show. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett, joined first this morning by head women's wrestling coach Zach Revier. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Thanks for having me again.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. And first of all, congratulations are in order. You just acquired your first win of the season, but not only that, your first official win as our head women's wrestling coach here at Avila. You were the de facto head women's coach last season, but really now there's no more de facto. You are the default. You are the women's wrestling coach now. So first and foremost, before we get into any of the nuts and bolts, your first official win as a college head coach under your belt. How does that feel?
Feels pretty good. Feels pretty good to get that out of the way. But just like always, now we're on to the next one.
So just one win in the books. Expecting one of many this year, right? So just kind of one to just check off and move on is kind of how you're feeling?
Yep, learn from it, adjust from it, and grow from it as a team, as a coach, and then move forward on back to work as always.
So win number one for you, but also for the team this season in year 3 of Avila women's wrestling. As we talked about the last time you were on the show, biggest roster in program history. It's not close. One of the biggest rosters in the country. You sit on KCAC Media Day last week, and we got to see a lot of them on the mat for their first real competition. We obviously got to see a lot a couple of weeks ago at the Black and Purple Duel, but our first look at your team in full force, really, on Saturday nights. What's your takeaway from night 1 of real competition?
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with most of the stuff. We do have quite a bit to work on still, but that's expected after the first competition. And quite frankly, I've never wrestled in October before. I don't think any of the girls have either. So it's still early in the season, and we need to keep reminding ourselves that. But that's why we're wrestling early, right? Kind of learn from our mistakes, the things that we did make. We had a full, pretty much a full team. Everyone was able to kind of jump in and do their parts, and from that's how we were able to capture the victory. But I was pretty impressed with them. Kind of a little hesitant off the first whistles, but as the matches got going, the girls kind of started moving forward more and taking ground and taking position, which I was impressed of. A couple of the matches, if we would have had a little bit more time, I'm pretty confident that they would have came back and won some of those matches. So just need to get off the whistle a little bit faster moving forward. But again, we can work on that in practice, so I'm not too concerned about that. Kind of expect that with the first one. A little bit of pre-match jitters, pre-match nerves, especially being a home event. The crowd was great in Maybe Fieldhouse on Saturday, pretty full, pretty loud in there. But now that's all out of the way, right? We kind of get that. We're used to that. We should be comfortable, accustomed to that now, and just use it as a growing opportunity moving forward.
How much does that experience, that actual real competition, matter to any team, but especially yours? It's a big team, like we said, but it's still a very young team, and a lot of those ladies were on the mat for the first time in college, for the first time ever on Saturday night. So how much does that, just getting that first match, even if it's just you go out there and get your arm raised and get a forfeit win, how much does that have any impact on how you're looking at the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it has a pretty big impact. It's natural to put nerves and have some pressure on you for the first ones, but even as a coach, I was pretty excited going into it as the first one as my head coach, but I think we all kind of took a nice big sigh of relief after the match. But again, pretty good stuff. Again, important to get those first ones out of the way, and fortunately for us, it was really early, first duel in the country. I think there might have been another duel, maybe 2 on Saturday as well, but first one's kind of setting the way, setting the example. But just gives us more time to work moving forward, right? Everything's leading up to late February, early March, so we got plenty of time to make adjustments that are needed. But yeah, get that out of the way, get that comfortability out of the way. It's nice to start at home. To me, honestly, kind of home usually there's a little bit more lights, a little more pressure with it. So it was a good test, just like the inter squad, a good little test to get started. Again, we learned lots of things that we need to work on moving forward, but I couldn't be happier of the moment itself. Out of the way, moving forward. We know how to do it a little bit better, both on and off the mat. So very good to get those life tests out of the way, and especially at home in a more controlled environment. So I think it was a pretty good result through and through. 27-17 was the final. You mentioned kind of a sigh of relief. That's, I think, honestly, I'll speak for all of us at the table. That's kind of how we felt as well when everything was kind of over, because it came down to the wire, really. The duel was decided for all intents and purposes at the last wait. Shannon Briggs getting the win to seal things up. Now, the team had it in hand because of all the forfeits, but it was still fairly close, all things considered. So how are you feeling about
is there anybody in particular that stood out to you individually, collectively, maybe in some weights that we've seen before that, or even people that didn't get to compete that stood out to you as positives going forward, even though the match score ended up being a little bit close?
Yeah, first and foremost, a couple of them did get their first college matches out of the way. Jacqueline started her duel off at 130. It was her first college match all time, and in her match, it's the same kind of thing, right? Towards the end of the match, she really started understanding that she belongs there and started moving forward, started getting some points late in the match. So that's going to be really good for her moving forward. She knows that she can compete with these girls and score on these girls. And quite frankly, in freestyle, if you can score on them, a matter of matches, matter of time, you should be able to start winning some of those matches. And same thing with Shannon Briggs, her first college match for us as well. She went out there right away, hot off the gates. She kind of forced the action off the whistle. Got put herself to her back, but she was determined and she fought off her back. And that's another true testament of freestyle wrestling. As long as you keep wrestling and you believe you're in it, you're always going to have a chance to win. And quite frankly, she did that. She got the fall for herself, and that secured the team victory as well. If she would have got pinned there in that match, it would have been a tie and would have went down to criteria. Didn't quite look at the results to see how that would have went. Fortunately, we didn't need that. Another one I kind of want to highlight is Sarah. She jumped up a couple weight classes for us. Sarah Salarstrati, kind of a warrior for us. She jumped in. She could have, she competed out in that match. She came off the whistle hot, very aggressive, very physical, got out of position a little bit. And again, same thing with freestyle. You get out of position. Sometimes you pay for it. But again, she went out there, gave her best effort, jumped up, went out there for the team, gave her best effort, and we can work on the getting out of position. We can work on that training moving forward. So I'm super impressed with her. Honestly, all of them as well. Irma Williams, same kind of thing, a little slow off the whistle, but later in the second period, she started finding points, and late in the second period, she floated over and was almost able to capture the fall, but she kept wrestling. Nonetheless, she kept wrestling, and she gave herself an opportunity, and that's all we asked for. Again, just get off the whistle a little bit earlier, and then good things will happen for all of our girls. And we had a couple exhibition matches at the end as well. We split those. One, Jada Meredith went after it and got the fall. Had some high-level moves out there, put up a lot of points. Daviana, she went out there and got her first college experience as well. So again, like you mentioned earlier, get that out of the way, get that feeling out of the way, and learn from it, right, moving forward.
I think you guys have kind of paid your dues as a program. As we start off year 3 of Avila Women's Wrestling, William Woods is in year 1. That was their first ever duel as a program, and something that I was kind of thinking about during the broadcast, and as we saw, there were so many forfeits, so many open weights to start the event, and I mean that was where our team was not right there, obviously, but you had to deal with that same exact situation as a program the last couple of years, where you knew that going into a duel, you would have a certain number of weights open. You were going to be giving the other team a certain number of team points right out of the gate, and you understand that it's hard to come back and win events like that just because of how the points are structured. So that was the situation that William Woods was in. And you guys are now on the other side of it because you have done so much work to build a roster, not just get the numbers, but get quality individuals and talented individuals here. So now you're on the other side that you can, I don't want to say it's not easier necessarily, but in terms of getting points automatically, it is easier. So you've had to deal with that other side the last 2 years, and now you get to kind of reap the rewards on the other side that only competed 6 weights, right, in total, and that was all that we needed to see.
Yeah, and like you said, we were literally there last year, so we learned from it on our end, and made some matchups last year to kind of do everything, and just like for William Woods, everything had to go right for us last year, and same thing with William Woods, everything had to go right. Same thing with us, right? Everything has to go right. We could have put up a couple more points on the board. Not everything went right, but that's okay. That's part of life, right? You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna fail sometimes, but it's what you do after that really defines who you are. But yeah, that's going to be a huge asset this year moving forward, having a full lineup. I think 60% of the teams in the country right now don't have or have forfeits in dual criteria at least, so that's going to be a huge advantage for us. We got to get everyone down to weight, so we do have a full weight lineup every single time we go out there. But yeah, that's gonna put us in good position for most of the duels. Obviously we're gonna have to do some wrestling and win some matches as well, but that's gonna put us out to a little advantage start for a lot of these duels. But that's nothing being said, right? We learned this weekend that if we go into those environments and those situations and don't perform to our best, like we can get caught for that. So we need to do a better job of treating everyone, giving everyone our best, no matter who it is. They have 3 girls on the team. They have 50 girls on the team. It doesn't matter. We've got to be prepared. We've got to take care of business against anyone, and that's quite frankly, that's just the name of the game. But yeah, super excited about that. Like you said, a pretty big squad here. We'll be bringing have more people wrestling this weekend, which I'm looking forward to. Get some more first experience out of the way. But yeah, that's going to be very advantageous for us this year, the numbers that we have on our roster.
First duel in the books against William Woods. First open competition coming up this weekend, the Falcon Invite hosted by Friends at Hartman Arena. So what are you looking forward to from the team for that? You said we'll get to see a lot of other wrestlers in there as well, about a dozen plus get to compete in that situation for the first time this season, and for many of them for the first times in their careers.
Yeah. So right now we have about 15, 16 that are set to compete this weekend. We had 7 compete on Saturday, so about double what we had.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. A lot of it is going to be the first time wrestling college matches. Some of it are going to be the first time wrestling freestyle matches. But same kind of thing, right? I love this tournament because it's a big tournament, big gym, big venue. But guess what? So is nationals, so is conference at the end of the year. So get that kind of environment test out of the way as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to see what the girls bring, and looking forward to have some of them get their first opportunity to step on the mat wearing the Avila singlet. And it's going to be this is going to be the most women wrestlers we've ever had to compete at a tournament. So I'm excited to stay busy, running around from chair to chair as we're coaching. But hey, I like staying busy, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I believe that we're going to see some good wrestling this weekend, so I'm looking forward to it. I know the girls are as well.
Speaking of staying busy, then I'll let you go so you can go address some of this stuff. You've got some not just local competition, but international competition coming through ranks here in Mabee Fieldhouse in the Pavilion in Kansas City this weekend. We talked a little bit about it the last time you were on the show, but what can you tell us about what your team has built and what your team will be doing with the Ukrainian national team this week?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I kind of want to highlight our team. You know, they've done a great job at building a family atmosphere, reaching out to those when, you know, sometimes they're a little bit down or whatever it may be. But I think that really highlighted this weekend. You know, all the girls are down there cheering, being really loud for the team, supporting each other, helping with warm-ups, helping with cool-downs, helping anything we needed, right? And so with that, they've been great at helping facilitate getting this week lined up for us while we're hosting the Ukrainian women's team. They're going to be joining us here in about the next 45 minutes or so. We got them situated in town here up in the city. So we're going to be doing some split training with them this weekend, and you know it's their team. You know, a lot of these girls, their girls are going to be trying to compete for the Olympics next year. Actually competing at the Olympics next year, so I'm excited to learn from them, have our girls learn from them, and just really build relationships with them moving forward. Got a couple training sessions lined up with them. We're all looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a great opportunity, and we're all going to learn quite a bit from them. So I'm excited. I know the girls are pretty excited to do so, and it's going to be just another good test, right? These are, for example, they're 55 kilogram, or about 130 pounds. She got second in the worlds this last year.
Wow.
So one of the best women in wrestling is going to be here on campus, kind of teaching us some things. And I think it's super beneficial to have these opportunities and be able to provide to the wrestling community and make these relationships at the end of the day. Wrestling's a very small community, pretty easy to get interconnected, but this is the start of it, right? Introducing a team from another country. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun week.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, the opportunity just to meet these people, to interact with them, and then just to get to compete with and against some of the best in their sport, not just in the country, but in the world on this at this level. I mean, it's unlike anything that we're just about ever to see here. It's really, really cool. So well done to you and to your team for putting all that together. It's really, really exciting. Looking forward to hearing a lot more about that as we go along this week. That is head women's wrestling coach Zach Revier. A lot more still to come with the Avila wrestling programs this season. Falcon Invite up next for the Eagle women this Saturday at Hartman Arena. Stay tuned for a lot more from the Eagle women's conversations, interactions, and experiences with the Ukrainian women's national team this week in Kansas City. Coach Revier, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're watching Eye on the Eagles. We'll be right back with our next coach. Welcome back to Eye on the Eagles. It's the day before Halloween. We're live from Tanner's at Redbridge. I'm Tim Hackett, now joined by head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you.
Congratulations are in order for you as well. You pick up your first win of the season, but not just the first win of the season. Your first win as our head men's wrestling coach. How does that feel?
Feels good, but I'm ready to already get back to work. I got some good takeaways, some things we did really well, and some things that need a lot of work. But I'm excited. So
it's kind of, I understand that's kind of the approach for y'all's team this year, is just kind of one step down, next step coming up. But it was not just, you didn't just crawl over that step. You guys completely hurdled it. Really impressive, I think, end-to-end performance. Won 11 of the 12 matches that were competed, including the 2 exhibitions, and really just a comprehensive team victory. Bunch of pins, bunch of majors. I thought, impressive showing altogether by just about everybody on your squad. That's how I felt. How did you feel?
Yeah, I felt like we looked like we knew how to wrestle a little bit. We stayed basic, which is good. And within a lot of those matches, I was asking those guys to give intentional releases and go chase down bonus points. And that's I'm going to challenge my guys to do that as whenever we get the opportunity. So we did that, and they executed that, and some of them got the bonus points, but some of them did not, but the effort was there. So I was pleased with that. Of course, there's always going to be technical takeaways, but I think our mentality, our preparation, not necessarily in practice, but our preparation pre-match, our preparation day of, mental preparation, there's a good crowd, there's a good environment, it was loud, it was at home. And for some, it was their, first college match. Yeah. So there are some nerves there, and I think we handled that well. So I was pleased with that.
Ultimately, I felt like, great, again, really comprehensive performance. 49-4 was the final team scores against a first-year program. For me, it felt just like taking care of business. That was probably what you expected and were hoping for going in. First of all, is that a fair assessment? And if so, are you still happy with how things finished up?
Yes, I would say that is a fair assessment. And, in between the women's duel and prior to our duel, I pulled them in the locker room, and kind of my message to the guys was, at first I said, hey, this is a cool environment, right? And, they all said, yeah, this is awesome, this is great. I said, okay, great. Now forget about the environment. None of that matters. Do what we train to do on a daily basis. There's a certain level of excitement you need to perform at a high level, but that can get out of hand very quickly. Cheering for your teammates, cheering for the women's team, letting the environment dictate the positions you're choosing to wrestle in. So my message was, do what we train to do, stay within yourself, and they did that very well. So, I was pleased with that.
You said the preparation day of was something that stood out to you. So to me, that means that the team was ready. They knew that coming into that day, it was a weird day, right? The times changed a little bit from when we first started. It was a full day of stuff on campus. Weather was terrible. And by the time we actually finally got ready to wrestle, all of the athletes were ready to go. And it showed not just in the team score, but in all the individual matches as well.
Yeah. So Saturday morning, I got the guys together. I didn't want them sleeping in too late, so we got together 9 a.m. It was chilly out. And we just walked the beautiful neighborhoods surrounding the campus. And we took about a 3-mile walk for about 50 minutes and got the blood flowing, but nothing too strenuous. And we got to fellowship a little bit and, just spend time together and talk about things outside of wrestling. Laugh, joke, have fun, make crack jokes. And that's the kind of vibes I want competition day. And then outside of that, the guys, weight cut was not an issue. They handled that. Again, they took care of business. So I was pleased with that. Our pre-match warm-up was good, and, that's going to be kind of fine-tuned throughout the season to get us the most prepared. I will say I would have liked to see my guys do a little bit better warm-up leading up to their match, have their heart rate up, break a little sweat. Pardon me. A few of them went out and were slightly flat-footed, and no slight against William Woods, their first-year program, but against maybe more experienced programs, that may cost us. So, again, there's some lessons to be learned there, but so a lot of good takeaways. But our preparation I was pleased with throughout the whole week. So now it's we get to do that again. We get to run that back, and that's the beautiful thing about wrestling. You get to right a wrong pretty quickly. Not that there were wrongs, but you get to make an adjustments soon. So that's this Friday for us.
Again, your athletes won 11 of the 12 matches that were competed on Saturday. Were there any individuals that stood out, especially to you, given those results?
Yeah. I mean, the one that stood out to me, Jacob Ramirez. He wrestled at 149 pounds. He's making his descent down to 141 pounds. But, I mean, you watch the match. The boy looks slick as oil out there. He should be feeling pretty good, and he hit some pretty big moves. And, his leg attacks were phenomenal, and he just looked fluid. He looked fluid out there. So we've got to get him confident with his body. He's coming off of a year of pretty significant injuries. So rebuilding that confidence of being able to wrestle a 7-minute match. That was one match. Now we're going to have Saturday. He can have anywhere, 5 matches.
Sure.
So getting him, like I said, confident that his body will do what he is asking it to do. But had some guys, handful of guys bumping up weights. So, again, that was no factor for them. I said, hey, we're making sacrifices while we get down to weight. Luke Ward, he weighed in at 132 pounds, bumped up to 141 pounds, and again, it was no factor. He took care of business. So that stood out. Nathan Coley, he was out there pulling the trigger. He was trying to find his attacks. So, I was pleased with that. Blake Becker, he's one of those guys that go out there and maybe previously was a little bit frantic wrestling, looked a little bit rushed. In wrestling, you want to be, there's urgency, but you don't want to rush through positions. Like I said, he looked more basic, and he looked like he was a little bit more methodical. So that's my main goal for Blake, and he's striving towards that. He has made steps towards that, and it was evident in his match. Darius Webb, he's impressive about, every time he steps out on the mat.
No doubt.
So he took care of business again. And he looks like a true college wrestler out there. So, and Jake Callahan, again, bumped him up while we're making some weight adjustments. And, again, he's a 65-pounder, wrestling a 174-pounder, no factor. Went out there, man on a mission, determined. And, again, he's put in that work. He's on a vision quest. So, let's see. Carter Brink, he didn't have the outcome he wanted. The guy had a great week of training. And for him, I think it's just continue to build that confidence in his ability to wrestle 7 minutes. Once he finds that, he's going to be difficult to wrestle. So he's working his way towards that. Now he's on the backside of it. He's feeling physically good, but he didn't have quite the same training slot as some of these other guys. He had to sit a little bit while we got him healthy. He's healthy now, so it's just making that up. I was pleased. And then we had our extra matches. Mozzarella, as I call him, Terrell Carter-Williams, he looked good. I'd like to not see him get taken down to his back right off the bat, but he hit a little adversity, found a way to win, and got the fall. And Josh Martinez, again, that dude's just a dog, period. He a little banged up, can't really wrestle as much as we've wanted to in practice, but he found a way to get the W. So I was pleased. His cardio, usually his cardio is a weapon, and due to his injury, he's not quite where he is comfortable being, but he went out there and got his hand raised, and he looked good doing it. He kind of dominated that whole match. So
I think that there's something to be said for dominating at your weight and excelling and being consistent at whatever weight that you are going to typically be in. There's something to be said for that. But I think it's also very impressive, and it bears mentioning when you've got guys in there multiple. You just mentioned that shift weights, not just within this year, and obviously we're just one duel down, but over the course of their careers maybe, guys that have tried different things out for various reasons, not always their choice necessarily, but in this sport I feel especially that is so common, so prevalent. Again, it's no one's fault necessarily. It's not anybody's choice all of the time. Sometimes it's a necessity, and seeing those guys go out there, and same for the women, so to see those athletes go out there and not only say, okay, yes, coach, I'll do it, give me a shot, I'll do it, but then to go out there and not just compete but excel at a weight class in a different situation than perhaps they were expecting, that is something that's really impressive to me.
Yeah, and it takes a decision mentally. I talk to the guys about it, and I'm super transparent with my guys about why we're doing these things. They are sacrificing 8 to 9 pounds, 10 pounds sometimes against their opponent, and that might seem insignificant in some other sports. But if I'm wrestling 141 pounds and I'm 133 pounds, I bump up 8 pounds. Well, that 41-pounder I'm wrestling, he probably cut his weight down from 150 pounds. So in reality, it's closer to 15, 20-pound difference. But it's not about the individual. It's about the Avila Eagles. It's about the program. You're making those sacrifices for the program, and that's going to kind of be our month of November while we have guys on our descent plan, making their way down healthy to the way that we're going to see them in, the end of the season. So, I tell my guys the priority is always program, team, individual. So what's the best thing for the program, followed by what's the best thing for the team, followed by what's the best thing for the individual. So it's all about sacrifice, and those guys, they bought in, and they believe, as tough as it may be, I didn't hear a chirp about it, which is good. You go in, you take care of business, and you get back to work when it's time to get back to work. So I was pleased. Our attitude about that has been great, and it's good. I need that to continue for the month of November till we are, November 30. We have Ottawa at home, and that's going to be the first time we probably see our full lineup where everyone is down to their final weight.
It just takes that. It's just that long of a process in this sport to get to whatever not the desired weight, but the target weight for whoever's assessed that. It usually takes that long into the season to see that realized.
Yeah, there's for those outside of the sport, there's weight cutting has had some near misses and has some tragedies way back in the 90s. So they implemented some things to protect the athletes, where it's a mathematical equation that takes into account your body weight, your hydration level, the specific gravity of your urine tells you how much water is in your body, and your body fat percentage. So there's a formula, and it tells you how much weight you can lose, how much you can weigh each day. So
wow.
So this weekend, we're going to have some guys, for example, weighing 128 pounds, but they're going to be wrestling 133 pounds, and so they have to be below it. So on the next weigh-in, they can weigh 125 pounds, right? So there's a formula just to make sure these guys aren't crashing their bodies and they're not compromising their health just to get to a weight class. So we want to do things the right way, and not only that, but we want sustainability. We don't want you to make the weight and do a lot of yo-yoing. If you wrestle 157 pounds and you're down for the first time, I don't want you to weigh in and then next thing you know, Monday you're 180 pounds, right? So finding where you can have a sustainable weight throughout the year. And we're not the only team in the country doing it.
Sure.
All teams do this. And so that's another thing, is just do what you got to do, take care of freaking business, and that's part of it. So.
Well, this is just the first step on the path of this season. It's not exactly a yellow brick road going forward. The path gets a lot harder from here. Start with a first-year program in William Woods this past weekend, moving on to a nationally ranked program in Embry-Riddle on Friday. That's your second duel of the season before the first open invitational of the season on Saturday, the Falcon Invite at Hartman Arena. So let's go step by step really quickly. What can you tell us about Embry-Riddle, your first big test of the year?
Well, they're not nationally ranked. They're just outside. They're basically nationally ranked. They're the first team outside of the top 20.
Nationally receiving votes, I should have said. Thank you.
Nope, you're good. But regardless, they're a very, very tough team. They're very well coached, and they have quite a few ranked guys. Obviously, that gets them to being right outside the top 20. And we're excited. I'm excited for the opportunity to compete against one of the best teams in the country. So it is a step up, and I think that it's a good opportunity. It's a big we'll see, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what our preparation and what our mentality is this week. Honestly, it shouldn't be any different than what we've been doing the past, 6-8 weeks, whatever. Obviously, we're going to make minor adjustments from things that we saw on this previous Saturday. But it's I'm excited for the opportunity. Again, they're a good team, but I think we're a good team too. So, again, we will see. And it's a good opportunity to step up to the plate and put the Avila Eagle men's wrestling team out there on the map a little bit.
Starting the way of the Eagles this year, and then Falcon Invite coming up on Saturday. Opportunity to get a lot of different wrestlers. I don't want to say different necessarily in the sense of guys that won't be competing Friday will be competing Saturday. Just more wrestlers out there on the mat than we've seen already.
Yeah. So it won't be just our starting 10/12-ish, but if they're healthy, they're wrestling Saturday.
Okay.
Yep. So. Minus a few guys, right? Like some of the older guys, we're going to be selective with the matches they wrestle and their match count throughout the year. But basically, like I said, if they're ready to go and they're healthy, they're putting a singlet on and they're strapping up on Saturday. So it's a good field. Lots of NAIA teams, lots of some really, really good JUCO teams, some D2 teams, I believe. So it's a big tournament, and it's kind of cool because it's the only one of the year where the men and the women can compete side by side. So that's always good for the program. We want to spend time together, and as the men's program grows, the women's program grows, and vice versa. So we are one big family, and it's cool to compete side by side because we won't get that opportunity. I don't know if ever again throughout the season.
It's pretty cool to have that, just because you guys obviously do so much together, spend so much time together, compete the similar sport, but now it's trying to spread the teams out a little bit, as we've talked about before, turning this into two separate teams underneath an umbrella rather than just one big program.
Sure.
But it is still cool to have that opportunity where both groups of individuals, it's not really a team event, but both groups of individuals are still out there competing, trying to go for that shared goal.
Yep. Yeah, it is cool. And, it's a first opportunity for some of these guys in the year to wrestle more than, one match a day, right? So it's a deep field. It's a big tournament. This year they're splitting it to, I don't know exactly what they're calling it, but basically a open division, which is going to be more of your seniors, juniors, or really high-level young guys, and then like a division below that where it's freshmen, sophomores.
Okay.
So,
we've seen that in some events before over the years.
Yep. And that's just because of the growth of the tournament, which I think is a good thing. Some of these freshmen, you could go out there and wrestle in this invite, and it's your first college match and wrestle, All-American or something like that.
Sure.
So I think it's a good thing, and we will have athletes competing in both. So
cool.
Yep.
That's big weekend for Avila men's wrestling. The first big weekend of the season. One win in the books. Many more to come. Avila against Embry-Riddle on Friday nights, and then the Falcon Invite on Saturday morning. When we've got details on all of those events, we will post them on our website, avilaathletics.com, and of course, stay tuned to our social media for further information. Coach Mateo, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Live the way of the Eagle, baby.
That is head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo. This is Eye on the Eagles. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back to this episode of Eye on the Eagles. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett, joined now by head volleyball coach Marylyn Mozena. Welcome, Coach Mo.
Thanks, Tim.
You guys had 3 matches at home this week. We'll talk about that, but first you guys are going to go on the road to finish this regular season at McPherson and at Evangel. Bit of a gauntlet.
Yeah. Good thing we're not going to Bemidji, Minnesota.
Yeah, it's better than that. It's 30 degrees here, so I can't imagine what it's like out there. So before we talk about that,
I think I would die up there, genuinely. 30, it's bad right now.
There's some good volleyball in that neck of the woods. That's all I can tell you.
That's true.
And there was some good volleyball played here in Kansas City this week as well. How about that for a transition?
Ooh.
3 matches at home. You guys saw one of the best teams in the conference, kind of the upstart team in the conference this year in Bethel to finish things off. Sean Soon just threw in some money. That's not how things normally go for me, I will say. There we go.
Money, money, money.
He's got it upside down, by the way. That's a nice reflection of how things normally go for me. So finish the week this past week with Bethel, which to me is I'll just say it, the surprise team in the conference this year. They've been really, really good. One of the nation's leaders in blocks as a team. They have the nation's leaders in blocks as an individual on the team, and you guys went toe-to-toe with them for 4 sets, outblocked them in the match, which I think I would have to go back and look how many times that's happened this season. Very few.
Right.
And, you and I talked a little bit after the match. I thought it was an impressive performance against one of the better teams in the conference.
Right, yeah. It was definitely we definitely played some of our best volleyball against a high-level team for sure. Really, we took set 1 from them, which was huge for us. I think that was a big confidence booster for us. And then, we almost took set 3 from them. And like you said, they're number 1 in our conference right now. They just I don't know that you can call it an upset because they were ahead of Ottawa, but they just beat Ottawa, who is traditionally our regular season winner or our conference tournament winner. So, yeah, I mean, they're a solid team, and they're in the hunt for winning the regular season to earn a bid to nationals. So, definitely was a really good performance for us. And what's funny is we didn't necessarily play clean volleyball even, which is, I think just shows you what we're capable of doing. I was talking to, I don't know if it was the girls or my assistant coach, I can't remember who it was, but, in set 3, we lost 27-25, and we went on an 8-air run, which is not great. You don't obviously want that, but we went on an 8-air run, and Bethel was up at 1 point, 11-2. And we lost that match 27-25, or that set 27-25. And so I was telling him, imagine if not even half of those errors are points earned by us, just 2, that the script is flipped, right? And we win that set 3, and we end up going to 5 sets, right, with a really solid team. And so it's just kind of our theme right now for this year is learning how to clean up our own side, clean up our errors. We do some really good things, but then, there are times where our youth shows and we do some not so great things. But, I think that's all part of the growing process and maturing and helping a lot of these young girls get experience at the collegiate level. We are playing against girls that are, juniors and seniors and have been in their programs for 2-3 years. Some of them are, 5th-year seniors,
sure.
And they've been, in a lifting program. They've been in a spring season. They're seasoned. And so I was really proud of our girls after that match. They probably would tell you that I wasn't, but I genuinely was. And I told them that if we play like that against Evangel and McPherson, we could shake some stuff up and get ourselves in a better position heading into the tournament. That's
definitely how Bethel is this year. They've got players who have been in this system now. It's their coach's 3rd year, but they have been players there for 4 or even 5 years. These are players that I've watched every year that I've been here, year 4 for me. So they are certainly experienced at the college level. Many of them are experienced playing together, and even though they now have a bit of a new identity this year because they're such an elite blocking team end to end, it's not quite how they have been in the past, but they still have played together mostly for a couple of seasons now, sometimes 3 or 4. So I think that's got to mean something to team cohesiveness, and
absolutely.
I think it's a direct correlation from that into what they've done so far this regular season. And like you said, it's not quite done because 24 hours later they go and take down Ottawa, which is the nationally ranked team in the conference. So good showing by you guys and a couple of individual players as well. I mean, Paige Human had a career high on the right side. It was kind of a battle of the right sides for a little bit there in terms of the the finishing percentage. So I thought she looked great on that side as another option for Daphne in the offense.
Yeah, Paige, she was our go-to that whole game. She was seeing a lot of success. You talk about Bethel's block, but that was something that I knew going in that we could expose, right? We work a lot in practice of tooling off the block, right, and utilizing that block to our advantage to score points. And Paige did that. Like, that was, our theme all night was, hey, set one, we did it really, really well as a whole collectively. And then set 2 and set 3, it was like Paige was the only one that was continuing to do it, right? And so we were talking a lot about that. Like, hey, yes, they're a good blocking team, but we can make them not look like a good blocking team by utilizing their block to gain points and to earn points. And Paige did that. She did that really, really well. She exposed their outside block a lot. Super impressed with her. She was, like I said, definitely our go-to. She was super efficient across the board that night for us, which was really cool.
Just about everybody was efficient a couple of nights before against Friends. It was one of the best performances that your team has had all season, I think, across the board. So I'm curious to see how you feel about it. But statistically, across the board, 3-set win over Friends, which, we saw here last year, had an amazing offense. Very, very different team this year, it must be said. So that certainly plays a part of it. But it doesn't matter who's out there. You guys, I think, throttled them, look really, really good in doing so.
Yeah, we definitely it was a dominant performance for sure. And we needed that. Sure. We needed that for our confidence, and especially heading to these last week and a half of conference play. But what I continue to remind the girls is, that's a team, like Friends was a team that took a set from Kansas Wesleyan, right? Some of these teams that, swept us that we didn't really give our best showing at. And so again, just another confidence booster for us. I couldn't agree more with you from a standpoint of that was the best volleyball we've played all year as a whole collectively. And that showed in the stats, right? We talk with Daphne after every timeout and after every set of like, hey, who's your hitters that are on, who's effective, who maybe isn't, not that we don't want to set them, but maybe who is our weak link right now. And that, like, I looked at the stats after every set, and it was, you get your option, you pick. You have all 5 of our hitters were on, and had really, really, really good performances that night, which was really cool to see, because something, we talk within our coaching staff a little bit about is it always seems like our serve receive is on, and then our attacking is maybe off, or our attacking is off, and then our serve receive is off, or our defense is off, And so Friends was just a really good team win across the board, defensively, offensively, in the start, serving. I think that game we had 3 serving errors, which is, Sean would be so proud of, because missed serves he hates. I have to constantly explain to him why we have so many. But yeah, so it was all around just a really good night for us with minimal errors, and that's something I talked with Dow a little bit about, our assistant coach, is, I think that whole night we had 13 of our own errors, whether it was attacking errors or serving errors, which is a really, really, really small amount of errors for us, right? Especially if you look at the Bethel game, we had probably 30 attacking errors alone. And so just across the board, it was a really, really, really good team showing. And, it was senior night, so a special way to send Kylie out on her senior night. What better way than to have a dominant performance?
Next time he mentions that service errors are tough, remind him they're kind of like strikeouts. It's probably not a good result, but it doesn't mean it's a terrible result. You can still strike out and still be competitive. Right. You can have a service error and still be competitive.
Correct.
I just kind of came up with that right now, and he's going to disagree, but I actually think it's a pretty good comp.
Well, my thing is, if we just serve lollipops, which is what Sean wants us to do, we're just setting the other team up to bring the ball right back at us at a full speed, staying in system. And yes, our defense is good, but why do that to them, right?
I guess their argument is they're going to score either way. So.
Why not try and make it harder to score?
Sure.
Right? Like that's the make it a little bit tougher. Out of system is a little bit tougher than in system.
It should be, at least. And I can't say it any other way than this. The team I just thought looked great against Friends across the board. Daphne at the helm kind of shook off. It wasn't all her fault, but a weird game the night before against Ozarks. She was called for a half dozen ball handling errors, which I've never seen before in my life. And then she comes up and comes close to a triple-double the next night, which I've also only seen a couple of times in my life, and that's typically only been with a team that, yes, a really good team, but a team that has a setter that is a go-to attacking option.
Right.
And not to say Daphne isn't, but she's not a hitter.
No.
So, I mean, Caitlin Haller at Ottawa the last couple of years was a hitter when she rotated out of being a setter. So last year I think she had 3 triple-doubles because she would be an attacking option when she wasn't setting. That's just not Daphne's role on this team, and she still had 9 kills.
Right.
So to me, that she was that close to a triple-double in this type of offense, again, that's not an insult. It's just literally just a different form.
Right.
That to me is really, really impressive.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was probably the best performance we've seen from Daphne on the offensive side of things. And we've talked to her a lot since she stepped foot on campus. Like, that's why we run a 5-1 is because we want our setter to be offensive minded. And so I think a couple of things, she did have that off night on Tuesday. I think that she kind of felt a little bit of redemption for Wednesday of like, hey, I got to make up for kind of what happened. And I'm with you. I was appalled at some of the calls on Tuesday. I was just as confused as anybody. But yeah, so I think that was a big thing. But then also she is offensive minded as a setter. Like she has that instinct. We just haven't seen it a ton from her, and I don't know if it's confidence in herself or what it is, and that's, I think, plays into it. Sure. But also, I think, she tends to not see a lot of success in it, and then she kind of shies away from it. And against Friends, she saw success right away, and so, of course, she kept going. And so it's something we work on in practice with her, and we know that it's something we're going to continue to have to fine-tune and make more of a priority for her in practice, and she knows that. She'll be the first one to admit it. She's just not super comfortable in certain spots when we tell her, hey, deep corner's open, all that stuff. And so I would say, though, over the last couple of weeks, we've done a good job of putting her on a box and giving her the opportunity to work on what that feels like when a pass is coming in, and when we need you to dump it, when we don't need you to dump it. But her court vision is impeccable. She does a really good job of creating one-on-ones for our hitters, but also too, she does a really good job of seeing what is open, right? And so that was the biggest thing with Friends is, we'd catch them in the donut, and then they'd kind of shift their defense in, and we were like, hey, throw it back to 4, and then she'd throw it back to 4, and then they'd kind of spread out a little bit. And so it's just kind of this game that, we as the coaching staff kind of read, and then she, as soon as we pointed it out to her, she kind of picked up on it a little bit too. And I love when she gets a kill off of a set, and I take pride in that, because I think that's, on the defensive side of things, that's the last thing you want. The last thing you want is the setter to score on you, right? And so, as a defender anyway, and so when we can do it, I know it ticks Abby off. So I know when we do it, I'm like, yes, that is money. And so, so I think she just does a good job of listening to us on the coaching or on the sidelines, but then also too, once you point out, she does a really good job of kind of knowing what to look for.
I've said it before to you, but that's my favorite play in volleyball, a setter dump, or on the even rarer chance where they get a pass right into a certain trajectory that they're going to turn around and swing with their outside hand as well. So it's kind of a feint move. So you're going up, you think you're going to hit it with both hands and send it over as a pass, but then they just swing it over with their outside hand. Those are my favorite plays in volleyball, because as a defense, you aren't expecting that. But then once you see that, even just in one set, maybe on tape, but you don't know how often it's going to be replicated if they're averaging less than a kill per set.
Right.
Then you see that now in a match in the first set. Now all of a sudden you have to account for that person as well, and not just your 2 pins and maybe a back row hitter, but now your setter's an option as well. And that just makes for another thing for a defense to have to track. And I mean, Friends libero gets to a lot of balls she has all season, but can't get to everything in a situation like that.
Correct. Yeah. And that's something we worked on, or I shouldn't say we worked on, but we wanted when we knew we were going to potentially run a 5-1. We knew that the setter is one of the last options that people think of when it comes to attacking, right? Because, that's not the role.
It isn't common at this level.
Right. And so, so it was fun to see her kind of have a pretty good night in that realm for sure. It's It's like taking a cookie from the cookie jar.
How important is it then to have that extra outlet in an offense? Because it seems to me, this is my conclusion, that the results haven't always been there over the last 4 weeks, but the offenses seem to get better in shape as the season has gone along.
Right.
We've seen a lot of different players step up on the offensive end. So, I mean, even with Maddie Jones out, Sydney Owens had a couple of great games in relief of her. We talked about what Paige Human did against Bethel. Siobhan Dittmer's been great all season.
Right.
Diamond Sedlak had her best game against Friends. So it just kind of – and now if you have Daphne as another viable option, even if she's only going to get you 3 or 4 kills in a match rather than 9, it seems to me that having that extra attacking option is – certainly you're not going to turn it down, because I've covered teams there where there's – one attacking option, and maybe that one attacking option is going to get you 20 kills, but everybody else is going to total 20 kills, and that means the offense is extremely predictable, and that, for me, makes it easy to cover as a defense. It's got to be good to have at least some people that you trust to give you some points.
Yeah, 100%. That's, I think, and because it's not necessarily a, go-to, it isn't as predictable, right? And that's, I think, the biggest thing with the 5-1 is obviously taking that 6th hitter out, and at one point you do only have 2 attackers, and thankfully we have 3 outside hitters that can be outside hitters and can play the back row. And so we knew running a 5-1, I knew bringing that in, we needed an option in the back row, or B, Daphne was really going to have to be a big option for us. And honestly, up until the Friends game, she used the back row before she utilized herself. And I think that, again, I don't know if that was just a confidence thing. She didn't necessarily, or if she wasn't as offensive-minded as we maybe would have hoped she would have been. I don't know exactly what it was there, but I think now, knowing that at points in the game we have 4 options. You know, we have our outside, we have our back, we have our Bic, we have the middle, and then we have her, right? And that, I think, is huge, huge alone, because that is hard to predict, where are you going to go? What's the call going to be? What's the play going to be? It just makes it a little bit tougher to read and to defend. And
making sure that you had a back row option was part of the game plan going into this year. That was a concerted effort. So it's not something that we've had much of since either you or I have been here in terms of outsides. I mean, Dee Williams was a back row attacker as a middle blocker for a little bit there, because just out of necessity, but that was. Obviously, it's not usual to see a middle do that. She did it very well, all things considered, but having an outside hit out of the back is not something that we've seen very much here.
Yeah. I think just as the volleyball game has developed more and more, the Bic is more of an option, right? Because it's tough to defend. It's a really tough ball to defend because you're clear off the net, and especially if you're playing a team that's running a 6-2 where their setter's releasing, their setter now has to stay defensively, or they have to split the court. Just there's a lot of different things that go into that. And so when I was recruiting outsides, that was a big thing, is where I was finding outsides that could play 6 rotations, because I knew bringing in Daphne and potentially running a 6 or a 5-1 over a 6-2 would eliminate a hitter. And I didn't want to eliminate a hitter. I wanted to have more hitting options, because the last 2 years, offense has been an issue for us. It has. And so for me, that was a big thing that I wanted to fix going into this season, was having more of an offensive presence. I knew our defense was great. Our defense has been great, especially last year, having Abby and then bringing Abby back. We knew defense would be a solid thing for us already. And so I knew I was looking for outside hitters that could play defense, but also were going to be an option in the back row. And, it's cool, because I think something we've seen a little bit more is Sid has kind of been able to be that for us quite a bit, especially since Maddie's been out. She's still working to get back in shape, all of those things. But also Sid's been doing great in the back row for us. She's seen a lot of success. She didn't have as much success against Bethel in it. But for the most part, Sid is definitely an option. And the nice thing is we practice it a lot. So, the confidence in them back there, taking those swings is there. And that's something we talk a lot about is, hey, just keep swinging, finding the setter, taking the setter out of system. Or, finding that donut, all those things. But, yeah, that was a huge part of recruiting, was outsides that could play 6 rotations, and that's what we have. We have 3 outsides. I mean, heck, even Mac on the JV, she could play 6 rotations. She does. She plays 6 rotations. So I think that's just where the game is going is, back to outsides being able to play all the way around. That was something when I played. That was huge. I mean, I played 6 rotations as an outside, and then I think just over, the last 8-10 years, it kind of went away, and DS is subbed in, and maybe not so much at the Division I level because obviously you're limited on subs, but at the NAI level we have unlimited subs, so it wasn't ever a necessity to have a back row or a 6 rotation outside. You could just let them play the front row. It was great. Yeah. You could throw somebody in there that could play defense, but for me, I think the more and more I am learning and the more I'm observing, I think it's important to have people on the court the whole time from a consistency standpoint, from an energy, a leadership standpoint. So not only did I want somebody that could bring that option from the back row, but I also wanted somebody that was going to be a constant on the floor, right, for us. And we had that when Maddie obviously was playing all the way around, or Diamond was, even when Sid was. And so really it's just trying to figure out how can you not disrupt the flow of the game as minimal as possible.
I think that I've been racking my brain while we've been having this conversation, because I was thinking that just about all of the best teams that I've covered, either at this level or at the Division I level, have had a 6 rotation outside. Right. But that isn't necessarily true. I don't want to even say it's a luxury, and it's certainly not something that you have to have to be an elite team, certainly not at this level, like you said. And I've been thinking about some of the best teams in the conference over the last couple of years, and it's really – I was going to come back and say that it's got to be a nice luxury to have, because some of the best teams in the conference have had that. It's not necessarily true. There have been some that have, and there have been some that haven't. So I guess I'll rescind my point, because to me, I guess it must be a luxury, because I'm thinking about, here's one for you, but some of the best Nebraska teams that I got to cover in college, they do have a 6 rotation hitter, somebody like Michaela Fecky. But, not every team has a player like that, and they can still be elite national teams, either at NCAA or NAI level. So it's not a necessity, but it can't hurt.
It's, if anything, I think you hit it. It's a luxury, right? It's a bonus, and I think that's I think it can create an advantage for you, if anything. It's not necessarily a must or a have to by any means, but it can create an advantage, especially, you're talking about Nebraska from there. Love them. Obviously watching them now, Harper Murray out of the back row. When she's in the back row, they have 3 options at one point, and it's like if you can stack that BIC plus a middle and have that middle run at the same time, you're confusing the defense.
Absolutely.
And Harper or whoever the middle is at the time could create either a no block situation, which is tough to defend, right? And so if anything, it just is a luxury, and it can create advantages for you.
Even, our team at Northwestern ran it occasionally, and we were nowhere near as good as Nebraska's, so we didn't run it as well. But I'm sitting on the sideline on the table for many years, physically watching the player from the back middle fly out even as a decoy, even if she doesn't actually get the set. So your eyes are just drawn there, because it is a bigger player, a hitter that is coming out of the back row against a player, next to a player might be a foot shorter than them, and so physically my eye is drawn to them, and the set is going to the right side. So you have to physically adapt to that as a defense. You don't necessarily know where it's going, which is obviously the goal.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
Well, mission accomplished for now. Still 2 more games left in the regular season, but not to say they don't matter, because they certainly could help. But mission has been accomplished in terms of qualifying for the KCAC tournament. Unofficially, they don't ever reveal that until the season actually ends. But we know at this point that you guys will be there. But when and where and against whom still to be determined. So that means these last 2 matches are very important. Correct.
Yeah, it's a big question mark. Where we're at, what seed we are, where we're going, all of those things. And really, something I told the girls on Friday about is, we could shake things up. Yeah. We really truthfully could if we play the way we played against Bethel. It's going to be a dogfight against Evangel and McPherson. It's not going to be like us going in and rolling them by any means, but we're due for an upset at this point. Upsets are happening everywhere at all levels, and I think, we are due for it. And I think it would be cool to just, see how us even just pulling off one of the upsets, let alone 2 of the upsets, kind of what that would do for the conference tournament, like seeding, right? And just seeing where we land. And ultimately, I think we're in a good spot because we're going to have an opportunity to kind of redeem maybe some games that we didn't quite perform at. And honestly, I'm excited about where we're at kind of heading into this season, or this part of the season, because the best volleyball to be played should be happening at the end of the year,
Sure.
right? And I think when that happens, upsets happen, and shocking the nation, which is so obviously little for us, but just like little things. I would love to play St. Mary's again and just get another shot at a better performance against them, because I think our best versus their best could be a different outcome, right? And whether that means us winning or that just means us going 5 sets with them, I don't know. But I'm excited. I am probably more excited than I have been over the last few weeks. And so, like I said, there by no means are we going to go in and roll these two teams, but we're going to have an opportunity to play some really good volleyball and continue on that train and potentially create some chaos for the conference seeding.
There's a very good chance mathematically that you could play either one of these two teams again in the first round of the tournament, which is obviously something that you guys experienced last year and played Southwestern the last regular season game and then played them again first game of the postseason. So it wouldn't be unprecedented. And it'd be just kind of crazy if that happens again, but mathematically it very well could. So if you go out there and put in a good performance or even beat either of these teams, then that should, I would assume, make you feel good going into a potential rematch against them in a week.
Absolutely, 100%.
It's not quite Bemidji, Minnesota, but it is McPherson and Evangel coming up this week for Avila Volleyball to close out the regular season. Evangel on Wednesday, McPherson on Saturday. Both of those are road matches, and you can watch both of those matches, as always, on the KCAC Network, kcacnetwork.com. Coach Mo, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Tim.
That's going to do it for this episode of Eye on the Eagles. Thank you, as always, to Tanners at Redbridge for hosting us. Happy early Halloween to those of you watching live or after the fact. For all of us here at Avila Athletics, including Sean Sumi and Darian Miner, I've been Tim Hackett. We'll see you next time, same channel on Eye on the Eagles, 11:30 a.m. or thereabouts, every Monday morning, live from Tanners. We'll see you then. Until then, so long.